The Baltic Sea has always been a quiet place, a stretch of cold gray water where fishermen whisper and the wind never seems to rest. Beneath its calm surface lies darkness so dense, even light hesitates to enter. For generations, sailors told stories of lights flickering below the waves of echoes that didn't belong to their sonar. Most called them legends. But legends often begin with something real. On a still summer morning in 2011, a small crew prepared to dive. They weren't chasing myths. Just another day at sea, scanning the ocean floor for lost ships and forgotten cargo. They laughed, checked their oxygen, adjusted their suits. No one imagined that within hours they would find something that defied everything they knew about the world beneath them. The sea was calm, too calm. And sometimes silence is not peace, it's the sound of something waiting to be found. The crew of the Ocean X expedition had done this 100 times before. They were professionals, salvage divers, treasure hunters, explorers of forgotten wrecks. To them, the seafloor was just another world of rust and silence. But that morning felt different. The air was still, and every voice on the deck sounded smaller than usual. As the sonar began to scan the dark beneath them, one of the operators frowned. A strange shadow appeared on the monitor, circular, massive, far too symmetrical for a natural ridge. 90 meters across, perfectly shaped. The captain leaned closer. "Could be a ship," he said, but his tone wasn't sure. Another diver whispered, "Or something older." They saved the coordinates, marked the point, and stared at the screen in silence. Somewhere below in that vast black water, something was waiting, and the line between curiosity and fear began to blur. The Ocean X crew returned a week later. The sea looked calm again, but no one trusted its silence anymore. On the deck, they moved slower than usual, checking lines, adjusting masks, securing cameras. No one joked this time. Even the captain, who had dived hundreds of times before, stood quiet, staring at the horizon like a man about to step into a dream he wasn't sure he wanted to enter. The descent began. The first diver's voice came through the radio, calm but tight. Visibility 3 meters, lights fading. At 10 meters, the sunlight dissolved into green. At 20, everything turned black. The world narrowed to the beam of their flashlights, and the steady hiss of oxygen became the only sound that felt alive. Depth 60 meters, the operator on deck called. A moment later, a faint image appeared on the sonar. The same curve, the same impossible symmetry. He turned to the captain and whispered, "It's still there." The captain didn't look away from the screen. "Drop another marker," he said. "We're going closer." Below, the divers followed the tether line, gliding over the sand like ghosts. Then the light caught something. A wall, no, not a wall, a surface too smooth, too deliberate. One of them reached out, touched it. "It's cold," he said. "Feels metallic." His compass needle spun once, twice, then stopped. "Check your gear," another warned. "We're losing signal." The radio filled with static. Someone laughed nervously, trying to sound brave. "Maybe the sea doesn't like visitors." No one replied. On the surface, the scientists waited. The data came through in fragments, distorted lines, broken grids. "Glacial formation," one of them said, shaking his head. "Perfect circles can happen." But even as he spoke, doubt crept into his voice. He'd studied rocks his entire life, and nothing about this looked random. Night fell. The divers resurfaced, shivering, exhausted. Their faces were pale, eyes unfocused. They gathered in the small cabin, dripping wet, silent. The youngest among them broke first. "It's not natural," he said quietly. "It's too perfect, like someone built it and time just forgot." The captain lit a cigarette, his hands still trembling. "I've seen wrecks, cities, ice ridges, but nothing like that," he said. "It felt like standing on something that remembers." For days after, they replayed the footage, frame by frame. Strange lines carved into stone, steps half buried in silt, angles too clean for chance. Every time they looked closer, the mystery grew deeper. Instruments failed near the site. Batteries drained for no reason. The sea seemed to push them away. "Maybe it doesn't want to be found," one diver whispered. And for a long moment, no one spoke. Between science and faith, reason and fear, two worlds began to pull against each other. Above, the experts demanded data, logic, proof.
Look at these formations,
But below,
Captain. This
in
is
that
exactly what I
frozen
was
ancient
talking about.
dark,
I don't see how
5
that's
men had
possible.
seen something that proof could not touch. And though they returned safely, none of them ever truly came back. The next morning they dived again, this time in pairs. The surface crew watched in silence as 2 lights sank into the blue, fading like stars swallowed by the sea. Radio chatter was minimal. Every word felt heavy. Depth 70 meters came a voice. "We have contact." The camera feed flickered, then focused, and there it was.
What in the world
A
is
massive
that?
dome, half buried under centuries of silt, rising from the seabed like the roof of a forgotten temple. The lights glided across its surface, revealing edges too precise to be shaped by ice. Lines carved into patterns, angles connecting into corridors. "Are you seeing this?" A diver whispered. No one answered. For a moment, time seemed to stop. They hovered there, 5 men, lungs burning, hearts pounding, staring at something no textbook had prepared them for. "We're scanning," said the captain from the surface. "Stay focused." But the instruments were dying again. Monitors glitched. Compasses spun. Every light dimmed to amber. The only sound left was breathing. "Something's humming," one diver said. "Can you hear it?" A low vibration filled the water, not loud, but deep like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Then the feed cut, just static. On deck, the captain froze. "Pull them up," he ordered, no hesitation. The winch screamed as the cables reeled in. Minutes later, the divers broke the surface, gasping, eyes wide with something between awe and fear. None of them spoke. One finally pulled off his mask, his lips trembling. "It's not rock," he said quietly. "It's built, and it's old." The sea rolled calmly around them as if nothing had happened, but everyone knew something ancient had just opened its eyes. When the divers returned to the deck, no one said a word. Their suits dripped in silence. The captain watched them one by one, looking for something in their faces, a smile, a joke, anything human. But their eyes were distant, fixed somewhere below the horizon. Inside the small cabin, steam rose from wet clothes. Coffee sat untouched. The youngest diver rubbed his hands, trying to stop the shaking. Finally, he whispered, "It's not natural, none of it." Another nodded slowly, still staring at the floor. It felt like walking through someone's memory. The footage from the dive was chaotic, static lines, flashes of stone and shadow, shapes too clean to dismiss. Analysts tried to stabilize the video, but every attempt failed. The anomaly seemed to blur itself, as if refusing to be captured. "Maybe the sea protects what it wants to keep," one of the crew said. No one argued. Over the following weeks, the team became restless. They wanted answers. Samples were sent to labs across Europe. Most reports said the same thing: natural rock formation, sediment from glacial retreat. Logical, predictable, safe. But logic didn't explain the compass failures, the power drains, the patterns carved into the surface. It didn't explain why every time they approached the site, their voices on the radio would fade, as if swallowed mid-sentence. Late one night, the captain replayed the dive footage alone. He paused on a single frame, a corridor-like shadow stretching into the dark. He leaned closer to the screen, eyes wet from exhaustion. "If this is man-made," he muttered, "then someone lived here, someone built this, and the sea took it back." Outside, the waves crashed against the hull, a slow, steady rhythm, almost like breathing. For a moment, he imagined the sound wasn't water, but whispers rising from the deep. By dawn, the crew made one decision: no more dives. Not for now. Whatever was down there, it was older than they could understand, and perhaps it wanted to stay forgotten. The Baltic returned to silence, but for those who had seen it, that silence would never sound the same again. Years have passed since that dive, but the mystery beneath the Baltic still breathes quietly in every wave. The world moved on, new discoveries, new stories, yet for the men who went down there, time never truly restarted. They had seen something that changed how they looked at the sea and at themselves. Some of them still talk about it in interviews. Others never mention it again. But whenever they do, their voice is lower, and their eyes drift, as if they're still watching those shadows move in the deep. Scientists continue to argue. Some insist it's nothing but nature's trick. Others admit that not every pattern is carved by chance. Maybe the truth lies somewhere in between, part stone, part story, part memory of a world that drowned long before our own. On calm mornings, when the Baltic shines like glass, the captain still sails there. He says he doesn't dive anymore. He just listens. The sea, he says, has a way of remembering. And as the wind brushes the water, it feels almost human, like the world itself is whispering a thank you to those who dare to look back. Maybe it wasn't lost, maybe we just stopped listening. Beneath every wave, every silence, there are stories waiting to be remembered. The Baltic still holds one of them, and perhaps it always will. Would you dive if it meant finding what history chose to forget?